I spent hundreds on carefully chosen gifts for my nieces and nephews, but after a disrespectful comment from their parents, I kept every single one and walked out. I once spent a substantial amount on gifts for my nieces and nephews. Their mother, however, criticized my efforts as insufficient, deeming them embarrassing. In that moment, I resolved to permanently reshape their lives, and now, they plead with me to stop. From my earliest years, my parents instilled the belief that I was to become their provider. My ambition for financial success was always intertwined with dreams of lavishing my family with affection and presence. I excelled in academics and, as a teenager, covered more than half of our rent, yet a genuine thank you from my parents was rare. Deep down, I suspected something was amiss, but my craving for their approval was so strong that I simply pushed these feelings aside. Now, at 28, last Thanksgiving marked a surprising period of tranquility for me. For the first time in years, I could afford gifts for everyone. My parents, my sister Emma, her husband Joe, and their 3 children. I even bought extras to avoid sibling squabbles and to accommodate any unexpected guests. I convinced myself this was how life was meant to feel. Then came the unexpected blow. I arrived at my parents' house, car filled with presents. My mother opened the door. Instead of a hug or a simple greeting, she delivered a chilling message. "We think it's better if you don't join us this year." I genuinely thought she was playing a prank, and even chuckled. But then Emma's voice cut through from the living room. "This isn't a gathering for cheapskates. You've become a real drag lately." I stood there, utterly stunned. My father hovered in the background, silent. My mom looked as though she wished the floor would swallow her whole, while Emma seemed downright smug. I just stared blankly, my emotions cycling through confusion, rage, humiliation, everything. Slowly, I nodded and said, "All right, if that's how everyone feels," before turning and retreating to my car alone, surrounded by a pile of unwanted gifts. Cheapskate, drag, where was this coming from? A terrible feeling washed over me. I had a nagging suspicion Emma was orchestrating all of this, though I couldn't fathom why. So I did what I always do. I asked myself, if I were my own brother-in-law, what I am to Emma, would I appreciate myself? Memories flooded my mind instantly. Contributing to the kids' extracurricular fees, helping with their vacation fund during tight times, and even covering a portion of their house down payment. The answer was a resounding yes. It was in that instant that I allowed myself to feel truly furious, angry enough to decide this wouldn't end here. I marched straight back to their front door. They were still there, my parents whispering, appearing surprised I hadn't simply driven away, and Emma lounging on the sofa, scrolling through TikTok with the volume at full blast. I walked directly in. "What's going on here? Why am I suddenly unwelcome?" Emma smirked, not even glancing up from her phone. "You think we haven't noticed your recent lack of effort? Even the kids know. They've barely received anything from you in months." Honestly, I would have preferred a physical slap to that deceitful remark. I couldn't help but raise my voice. "Are you kidding me? I have hundreds of dollars worth of presents for your kids sitting in my car right now." But she cut me off. "I don't want to hear it. A few years ago, when they were born, you did far more. It's truly embarrassing." I turned to my parents, expecting some form of intervention or support. Instead, Mom offered an awkward half-smile and said, "She's got a point, honey. You just leased that new truck. You found money for that." For a moment, I was speechless. "The truck is financed," I replied, forcing myself to remain calm. "And even if I paid cash, how does that suddenly make me responsible for Emma's family? They're not even my children." "You make twice what Joe does," Emma interrupted again, leaning back as if we were discussing trivial matters. "We're family. Family helps each other." I glanced at Joe, who sat silently in the corner. "So let me get this straight," I said. "Because I've been generous in the past, I'm now obligated to keep giving forever, and if I don't, I'm a cheapskate?" Emma shrugged. "If that's how you want to see it, that was my breaking point." I took a step back and shook my head. "You know what? You're right. I don't belong here." I looked at my parents. "Enjoy your Thanksgiving." I walked out without waiting for a response. The drive home was fraught with tension, my knuckles white on the steering wheel. I almost wanted to believe I was the villain, that there was no way I was suddenly unwelcome at Thanksgiving simply for not having given enough. When I arrived home, I sat in my driveway for a long time, staring at the gifts I had spent hours wrapping, because those gift bags now filled me with dread. The more I considered it, the clearer everything became. This situation had been building for years. Thanksgiving was merely the catalyst. Emma had always relied on me financially. When she and Joe first married, they faced financial difficulties. Joe frequently changed jobs, and Emma's part-time work barely covered their basic needs. I stepped in to assist, thinking it would be temporary. A few $100s here, 1,000 there. But temporary stretched into years. I suppose, in a way, it truly was my own doing. I made it too easy for Emma to depend on me, and somewhere along the line, I inadvertently created a problem. That night was my wake-up call. I understood I faced a crucial decision. After careful consideration, I realized there was only one path forward. No more rescuing Emma and Joe, no more endless gifts to compensate for their financial irresponsibility. I was done. If they wanted their children to have the things I had been providing, they could find a way themselves. Severing ties with my sister wasn't easy. It risked damaging my relationships with her, her children, and potentially my parents. But I could not continue being treated as an ATM instead of a brother and uncle. I didn't reach out to anyone, and no one contacted me either. I thought perhaps they had understood the message, but I should have known Emma wouldn't simply let it go. The silence extended through Christmas and New Year's. No calls, no texts, nothing. For the first time in my life, I spent the holidays completely alone. It wasn't that I expected them to reach out, but it felt strange when the ball dropped at midnight and my phone remained silent. I won't deny, I thought about calling several times. But each time I picked up my phone, I remembered Emma's smug expression and her words, gathering for cheapskates. I had been their safety net for years, and they had the audacity to treat me as disposable? No, thank you. By mid-January, things began to shift. Joe had always been the quiet type, one to avoid confrontation, but one evening I received a text from him out of nowhere. Just wanted to say I'm sorry about Thanksgiving. I don't agree with what happened. Emma won't listen to me, but I thought you should know. I stared at my phone for a long time, uncertain how to reply. A part of me appreciated knowing someone in the family recognized the injustice, but Joe had sat there silently that night, and his apology now felt insufficient. I finally replied, "Thanks for saying that, Joe, but this isn't something I can just brush off." He didn't push it further, which suited me fine. Then, in early February, Emma appeared at my apartment unannounced. I was in the middle of a video call when I heard insistent knocking. I tried to ignore it at first, but it persisted. When I finally answered, there stood Emma, looking disheveled and annoyed. "We need to talk," she declared, pushing past me before I could object. I crossed my arms. "What's this about?" She wasted no time. "You need to stop this childish behavior and start helping out again." I laughed in disbelief. "Helping out? You mean financing your life? I told you, I'm done with that." She glared at me. "You're the one with money to spare. Do you know how hard it's been for us since you decided to throw this tantrum? The kids barely have what they need. Joe's struggling to keep everything together, but we can't manage without your help." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Are you listening to yourself? You're a grown woman, Emma. You have a husband and children. If you need more money, find better jobs. It's not my responsibility to solve your problems." "You've always helped before," she snapped. "Why are you being so stingy now?" "Stingy?" I echoed. "You want to talk about stingy? Let's talk about how you lied to our parents about me, turned them against me, and then banned me from Thanksgiving because I supposedly wasn't generous enough with your kids. And now you're here asking for more? That takes some serious nerve." She started to interrupt, but I held up my hand. "We're done here. I'm not giving you another penny, and I don't want to hear from you again until you learn how to act like an adult." She stood fuming for a moment before finally storming out. After Emma left, I thought that would be the end of it for a while. She'd sulk, perhaps complain to our parents, but eventually realize I wasn't backing down. I was mistaken. 2 days later, I received a call from an unknown number. I usually don't answer those, but something told me I should. "Hello, is this Alex?" a woman asked. "Yes, who's calling?" "This is Patricia Wilson. I'm an attorney. I represent a client who's raised concerns about certain financial matters involving your family. Do you have a moment to discuss this?" I froze. "An attorney? What financial matters?" "I can't go into specifics over the phone," she continued professionally, "but it involves financial contributions you've made to your sister Emma and her family, particularly the use of those contributions. Would you be willing to meet at my office?" My mind raced with possibilities. Had Emma taken out loans in my name? Was she using my information for something illegal? Or was this just another desperate attempt to guilt me into giving her money again? "Who's your client?" I asked cautiously. There was a brief pause. "I'm afraid I can't disclose that right now, but I assure you, you're not being sued. This is more of an informational meeting." Against my better judgment, I agreed to meet. Curiosity got the better of me, and I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more happening than just Emma being entitled. When I walked into Patricia Wilson's office the next day, she immediately delivered a bombshell. "My client is Joe," she said, sliding a folder across her desk. I blinked in surprise. "Joe? Why would he need a lawyer?" Patricia watched me carefully. "He believes Emma has been misusing the money you've given them over the years. He has evidence suggesting she's been hiding funds from both of you." My stomach dropped. "Hiding money? What do you mean?" She opened the folder, revealing bank statements, receipts, and screenshots of text messages. "Joe suspects Emma has been diverting your financial contributions into a separate account. Based on these records, she appears to be using the money for online shopping sprees and secret spa weekends rather than family expenses. I stared at the documents in shock. You're telling me all those times I helped with bills and the kids' needs, that money never went to them? Patricia nodded grimly. That seems to be the case. Joe discovered this recently and came to me because he wasn't sure what to do. He was hesitant to involve you initially, but given recent events, he felt you deserved to know. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Emma had been playing me all along, taking money I thought was helping her family and blowing it on herself. I felt angry, betrayed, and completely foolish for not seeing it sooner. Does Joe have solid proof? I asked tensely. Patricia nodded and pushed the folder closer. See for yourself. I flipped through the documents, finding transfers from my account to their joint account that matched times I'd helped with emergencies. Then there were withdrawals to a separate account in Emma's name alone. Transactions from that account showed expensive online shopping, spa retreats, and even a weekend getaway with someone named Jen that Joe apparently knew nothing about. Unbelievable, I muttered, shaking my head. And Joe just found out? He only discovered the separate account recently, Patricia explained. He had suspicions for some time, but didn't have access to her private banking information until he accidentally opened mail addressed to her. That's when he contacted me. I sat back, trying to process everything. Does he want me to do something? Press charges? Patricia shook her head. Not at this stage. He's more concerned about protecting himself and the children. But he wanted you to know in case Emma tries to manipulate you further. I laughed bitterly. Well, she already tried. She showed up at my place demanding I start helping again. Patricia nodded knowingly. That aligns with what Joe told me. It seems Emma is feeling the pressure now that your financial support has stopped. She may be in deeper trouble than Joe realizes. I stared at the folder, my thoughts racing. Part of me wanted to confront Emma immediately, but another part knew that would only satisfy her need for attention. Instead, I asked, what's Joe planning to do? Patricia hesitated before answering. He's weighing his options. He wants to ensure he and the children are protected, both financially and otherwise. If Emma's behavior escalates, he may file for separation. That hit me harder than expected. Joe had always seemed like the quiet, loyal type who'd stick with Emma through anything. If even he was considering walking away, things must be worse than I imagined. I called Joe that night. Our conversation was awkward at first, but it quickly deepened. I should have said something that day at your parents', he admitted. I've never been good at standing up to Emma, but that's no excuse. Why now? I asked. Why come forward about the money after all this time? There was a long pause before he answered. The kids deserve better than this. I deserve better. And honestly, so do you, after everything you've done for us. Whatever you decide to do next, you have my support, I told him. Thank you, he replied quietly. And I'm truly sorry about Thanksgiving. You didn't deserve any of that. We talked for a while longer, and when we hung up, I felt an unexpected sense of peace. Emma had burned her bridge with me, but Joe and the kids, they were my enemies. And if he was brave enough to stand up to her, I wouldn't hold a grudge against him. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that Emma wasn't finished causing trouble. A few weeks later, I received a text from Joe. We're leaving this weekend. I called him immediately, and he explained that he and the kids were moving to his parents' place in another state while Emma was visiting a friend, which I now suspected was code for another shopping spree. He was packing their essential belongings and taking the kids. He didn't want Emma to know where they were going until he had legal protection in place. I just can't keep pretending everything is normal, he said quietly. The kids see more than we think. What about moving expenses and getting set up? I asked, genuinely concerned about their well-being. There was a pause before he reluctantly said, I was hoping you might help with that, just until I get my first paycheck at the new job. I hate asking after everything. Say no more, I interrupted. I've got you covered. Just tell me what you need. I ended up helping Joe and the kids relocate, but for the first time in years, it didn't feel like I was being used. It felt like I was finally supporting something positive. Emma predictably went ballistic when she returned to find them gone. She called me, screaming that I'd turned Joe against her and destroyed her family. I let her rant for a minute before calmly saying, maybe if you spent less time shopping and more time being a mother and wife, this wouldn't have happened. But hey, good luck with that. Then I hung up. Joe is doing well now. He's found a decent job, the kids are adjusting to their new school, and he's finally starting to regain his confidence. As for Emma, I hear she's still blaming everyone but herself. My parents finally learned the whole story and have profusely apologized for taking Emma's side at Thanksgiving. But honestly, I'm just happy to be free of the obligation. Some family relationships are worth saving. Others simply drain you until there's nothing left.